withdrawals, deposits, all of this stuff is very similar to the people from this access and the fast trading experience also. That's why I'm saying that this is very, very similar to a decentralized version of Binance.
This podcast is sponsored by Coin ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you could find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies for cash. On their website, you can search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, and you can also search by geo area, country, state, city. You can also check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. If you want to find out more, head over to coinatmradar.com, which is coinatmradar.com. Hey everyone, I'm joined by the one and only Alex Shevchenko today. How's it going, man?
Well, it's good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I've been wanting to talk to you for a little while because, as just a little bit of a background, of course, anytime anyone is in the crypto world, obviously you need access to the actual crypto itself. And myself, I've been involved in the privacy communities for a very long time, and there were some years when there were some delisting problems for a lot of assets. And of course, I've been more involved in the Dash ecosystem in particular, and that, of course, is hit us as well. Things seem to be getting better now, but of course that sparks interest in DEXs. And there weren't really any good cross-chain DEXs until, from my understanding, Thorchain, and then a few others came around. And then a lot of people I work with in the cross-chain space started really talking about near intents and about how, it's the next generation of things. And I'm also close with the Zcash community, and I've seen a lot of success there. So I wanted to really get for a deep dive on this. So that's why we're here. So would you mind telling people who you are and what you do and how you get into crypto?
Yeah, so I'm Alex Shevchenko. I'm the founder of Aurora, and also I'm behind the development of the near intents. I've been in crypto since 2015, so for 5 years. For 10 years right now.
Nice.
I'm a techie. I'm a PhD in applied physics and math. Have always been focused on building the infrastructure projects. And 5 years ago, I joined Near ecosystem and started to build infrastructure around Near. So everything started with the Rainbow Bridge, the most decentralized bridge in between that was launched back in that moment in time. It was working in between Ethereum and Near mainnet, and then launched Aurora as an EVM solution on top of Near. And now focused more on the intent side, and which is also the cross-chain infrastructure that is available for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And it is kind of interesting how for a while cross-chain was one of the most difficult things to do. I noticed in the early days it was purely kind of the atomic swap type of thing. And then all the cross-chain DEXs that I knew of had some sort of a bridging wrapping mechanism at first, where you would deposit whatever into a pool, get a wrapped asset. That would actually be the DEX part. And then you'd still have to unwrap it on the other side. And of course, I experienced some of those things. And then it wasn't until, there's some really true cross-chain DEXs that would just get asset to asset, kind of like, as I like to liken it, the old school Shapeshift experience, where Shapeshift still exists in a different form, but that was kind of the underpinning of a lot of the crypto space. So would you mind explaining what exactly is near intents and how does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So near intents at the moment is the cross-chain spot marketplace that is working in the most decentral way as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the core primitives are actually very similar to the wrapping and unwrapping assets. So the way how it works is that there is a settlement contract that is located on the Near blockchain. This contract is responsible for making sure that users are owning what they own. and the smart contract is validating the trades. So like nobody is able to take money out of the user,
Mhm.
and it's only the signed transaction of the user that gets executed. Actually, it's not a transaction per se, but it is an intent. This is just a signed message. So you don't, in order to use Near Intents, you don't need to have a Near account. Now, and how the things are working is that the assets are locked on the on the origin chains, and then there is a synthetic assets that are minted on the near side, and these assets are getting traded. The trading itself is not happening through the AMM style architecture because this is extremely capital inefficient. But instead, there are active market makers who are connected with the system, and the system is trying to match the orders that are coming from users and the market makers. The protocol, the settlement, this system is working on the backend, but the settlement of the protocol, there is no trust towards this kind of matching that is happening. The only thing that this matching engine, or we call it also the solver bus or message bus, the good thing that it delivers is just the convenience of work, so that the front ends are able to show what is the current price, for example, of this asset, or what is what the user is gonna get out. What is the best thing that the user is able to get out of this particular swap? So I think the innovation, if we're talking about how things are working differently, is just wrapping this flow into something that is very usable by the distribution channels. So nobody is going to think of this multi-step process when you need to deposit, then you can swap, and then you need to withdraw. It's all pretty complicated. Instead, the distribution channels need to have a robust, very simple API that is still holding the same properties and the still trust assumptions as with just the core protocol, but it is working on the higher level. And for us, our go-to market with Near Intents was going after the B2B, like the B2B market or B2B2C market. And we work with our partners that are distribution channels like Trust Wallet, Ledger, aggregators like SwapKit, and with them, we're just providing to them this high level, very simple API that anyone is able to take right now, right out of our docs. There are 4 endpoints. One of the endpoints you might even not use. So it is super, super simple to build product on top of this stuff. And I think that this is the core innovation, alongside with the fact that we are not forcing uh, uh, anyone to use any particular wallet. We support everything that is available there. If you want to use Stellar Wallet or Tron Wallet or Ethereum Wallet or Solana Wallet or Near Wallet or Bitcoin Wallet or Zcash Wallet, you're able to do this. And then it's just going to work magically. But the magic itself is that there were quite lots of engineering hours that were put into the development of the systems that are actually interacting with this wallet.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like a lot of things that move kind of behind the scenes to make everything happen. So if we were going to go step by step for the end user, um, from what the end user sees, I assume they express that they want an asset for another asset. They get a quote, sounds good, and then they send to an address. And then from what they see, magic happens. They get the address, the thing that they want. So is that accurate kind of as far as what the end
Yeah.
user actually sees?
Yes. So this is what users are seeing if they are if they are inside of the front end that uses this one-click swap API, as we call it. The flow is a little bit different for users who are working directly with the Near Intents front end. So it is located at near-intents.org. And the flow there is that mm, uh, it's it is kind of like a decentralized version of a Binance. So imagine a Binance,
Hmm.
but the backend of the Binance is completely stored and validated on the blockchain. And so, like the flow there is that the user needs to deposit inside of the protocol some assets, And then he's able to extremely quickly trade these assets with the speed and at a cost of the near protocol. The finality of the near protocol is 1.2 seconds, and it is going to be less than half a second by the end of this year. So these are really very, very fast swaps, very, very fast trading experience that you are able to get out of the near intense front end. But then when you would like to move your assets elsewhere, then you need to execute the withdrawal procedure. And withdrawals, deposits, all of this stuff is very similar to people from the Saxes and the fast trading experience also. That's why I'm saying that this is very, very similar to a decentralized version of Binance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the latency between what's the lowest latency that could be experienced between sending something to be swapped and then actually seeing the outgoing asset being sent out?
Yeah. So the deposit and withdrawal mechanism needs to be pretty robust in order to make sure that nobody's doing the double spending attacks on the origin network. That's why the prerequisite and the biggest constituent in the latency is the finality or perceived finality of the transaction on the origin chain. Then after this finality, then there is a very short, the actual settlement of a swap that is happening on near, and all of this can be wrapped into approximately 10 seconds. And right after it, there is a withdrawal transaction, and the time of the withdrawal transaction depends only on the block generation of the target chain. So let me give you an example here. Imagine that we are swapping a Bitcoin into Solana. The perceived finality of the Bitcoin blockchain is around 20 minutes, so like a couple of blocks. So once the transaction has landed into the Bitcoin, user transaction has landed into the Bitcoin blockchain, which probably not happening, which happens like 5 minutes later, then usually user just clicks send a transaction. So there is like this 20 minutes that the system is waiting to observe this finality. After these, approximately 10 seconds are spent on the actual settlement of the trade, and then on the Solana side, the transaction is usually landing within like 15 seconds, not more than that. At the opposite direction, obviously happens much faster. The finality on the of the Solana transaction is around 30 seconds, which means that it is sold to BTC swap is the Solana's 30-second finality plus 10 seconds, so it's 40 seconds. And then after this, there is a Bitcoin transaction that is sent out in the pool of the unconfirmed transactions. Some of the Bitcoin wallets are showing these assets that are not yet, these transactions that are not yet confirmed. And already the user will be able to see that there is some motion, there is some movement of the funds going into his wallet.
Yeah, so on the whole, pretty close to instant if you do have chains that do operate relatively quickly, right? So as far as like,
yes, if there are swaps that are happening in between, for example, I don't know, Solana and Tron, given the block generation speed, these swaps are usually done in less than a minute.
Yeah, very nice. And so, how does the liquidity part work? I know you mentioned working with different market makers, et cetera, but like from a structural perspective, how does one provide liquidity for a near intense?
Yeah, that's a good question. So AMMs and these AMM DEXs, they give to us this notion that liquidity is equal to price. The deeper the liquidity is, the better is the price or the lower is the slippage.
Hmm.
Um, which is true for the setup of the way how things are working, because the assets are getting pooled, and then there is a mathematical formula that recalculates the prices based on the amount of the assets that are in the pool. But this is not the thing that works in Binance. And
Hmm.
instead of this approach, there is a central limit order book, and within this model, it is the market makers that are creating this depth of the liquidity, and they may have much less money on their hands in order to create more concentrated liquidity around the price, while decreasing the liquidity exposure on
Hmm.
the wider spectrum. And that's exactly the thing that works inside of the near intents. So, so users are coming to this place. There is no pool; like the external parties are not able to put money there directly. And it's market makers that you're trading against. It's like you are not able to put your money into Binance and give it to like some kind of trading pool against which the other users are trading. However, uh, the market makers, uh, uh, they are the way how they're working on near intents is that they have their own inventory deposited into the platform, and they're using this inventory to close the trades. But they also are able to, you know, within some specific trades, say, okay, I would like to. I'm going to deliver the best price to this user, and the market maker is winning this auction, and says that I'm going to execute this trade in 10 seconds time. And the reason why market makers are doing this is that they have assets, but not just in the token that the user wants to get. So they're using these 10 seconds on the lending protocols on Near to borrow these assets directly from
Hmm.
there. So that the market maker has, for example, stable coins. They don't have exposure to Sol token in our previous
Hmm.
example of Bitcoin to Sol swapping. They have stable coins. These stable coins are already located as collateral into the lending protocols. And what they do at the moment when this transaction is incoming, they calculate their prices, whatever their margins. They win the auction, and what they do after this is that they're borrowing this Sol, they're delivering it to the user. For the user, is just additional, just a little bit of time that it was taken for this transaction, but he gets the Sol. And our market maker needs to figure out how to close up the lending position, and but this is all the market maker's headache. This is not something that is exposed to the user. So, um, answering the question how to provide liquidity towards the near intent, unless you are willing to run your own market maker, your own solver, and an
Hmm.
active trading participant, the best way how you're able to provide liquidity is actually put it inside of the near lending protocols, so that the market makers are able to very easily access this liquidity, which would definitely make which will make you earn some yield because they are borrowing your money, and also it will make the better user experience for everybody who are using near intents.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, like for an individual user, they would probably participate in lending protocol, which is supportive of the market makers.
Yeah, and it is also going to be also better because I'm sorry to interrupt. It's going to be better because the user is supplying liquidity just from one side, and
Mhm.
it's not that you have this dual exposure with all of the problems that it leads to, and you have just single asset, and this asset is participating is earning yield every single time when this asset is traded. So if you supply ZAC, and then Bitcoin to ZAC, stables to ZAC, Solana to ZAC, in all of these trades, your liquidity is used and you're earning yield on this liquidity.
Yes, very interesting. And so, if you are, let's say, an actual market maker and want to participate as a proper solver, what's kind of the process for getting set up there, as far as like the
Um,
technical process?
yeah, like it's very, very simple. The API of this solver bus is completely open, and anyone is able to come and use it. At the moment, we see approximately 400 active market participants who are actively listening to this flow of the trades, and they are trying to compete to win this flow. Obviously, we know the big ones, and we are able to connect with them, especially because they are usually requiring kind of higher quote limits on the RPCs, or not the RPC, on the Solver Bus API, and other things. But the majority of this, for more than 400 participants, we even don't know who are these. We clearly see that there are some people who are running arbitrage boards. We clearly see that there are many teams who are just experimenting, and who are just running the market makers for some very narrow subset of the assets. So maybe these are associated with the respective teams that are behind these particular assets. Um, but in general, the API is open to everybody. Everyone is free to go there and do this. The core reason why it is like that is
Mm.
because the settlement is fully decentralized. We're not giving user money to the market maker and then they're doing something and then we hope that the market maker is going to do something. No, it's absolutely at the same transaction that there is a transfer of assets from the user to the market maker and from the market maker to the user. We don't need to build trust with the market maker. We don't need to build trust with user. Everything is trustlessly verified on the level of the smart contract, and we believe that that's the way how things should work. And because of this, because this system kind of stimulates the open market, and open market is usually the best answer to how to get the best prices.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, do you ever have any concerns about who provides liquidity or who gets mixed in? I know there's been sort of a you know a meta or narrative or whatever around the crypto space, where obviously in the early days, the whole world had to come to terms with the fact that these are permissionless rails. You cannot stop transactions on a real decentralized network. Anyone can use them. And then when you have decentralized trading protocols or things like, for example, Tornado Cash or something, there's a real concern, not just about the censorship resistance of that, but some people want it to be censorship resistant, but they don't like the idea of their capital being mixed in with that of other actors or they might not like. Now,
Yes.
this is, there's many levels to, of course, this, and this could be like a 3-hour long philosophical discussion on the state of decentralization long term and all this. But is there any kind of concern like that in the near intense ecosystem? And are there any kind of um,
Yeah.
ways of dealing with transactions or trades or things that people might find undesirable in some way?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very great question. This is something that we are spending quite a lot of our time for. So first of all of the transactions, all of the funds movement are completely transparent at this moment in time. And we see people that are doing some investigations of the funds flow. They're coming to us, they're asking questions, and everything is there in the blockchain and also in the Explorer that we have. And people are usually very grateful for having this information transparently presented to them. That's the first thing. Uh, the second thing is that uh, I cannot say that I'm, just like a crazy crypto anarchist, and I think that
Mhm.
like everything, like the governments need to die, and then the flow of money should be like whatever.
If
I
you did,
don't
you would not
like.
be the first on the podcast to say that,
Uh,
though.
yeah. Um, I really value these ideas, and I think that there is a place for them. But I believe in the optionality, and I believe that we need to have different options, and people should be able to choose kind of their levels of comfort here. So our approach is this: we are trying to build the protocol as decentralized as possible, so that these pieces are working completely without any additional supervision. Now, the things that are more centralized, for example, this backend service, the solver bus, that is actually given these additional convenience features that helps you to find the counterparty to trade with. This
Mhm.
system, I don't want this system to help DPRK to launder money. I don't want not only them but anyone to launder money there. That's why with this system we have KYT solutions integrated. They are checking the liquidity. We're working with biggest centralized exchanges and their own compliance departments to track the market liquidity and make sure that we are just not providing quotes to those people who are trying to launder their money. That's our approach. This service is not going to match the black liquidity with any other market maker. Saying that, the user, because of the protocol is decentralized, is able to deposit money. If he's going to find another person with whom he can trade OTC, there is nothing that we can do. And then this trade is going to happen. But this is not the same as providing a platform where a person can launder the money. It's literally he is connecting with somebody else and they're transferring money to each other. Nobody is able to, sorry for the cats, nobody is able to prevent this to happen. And independently of how it is happening, whether it is on our protocol or just as straightforward transfers. So this is the line that we have. This is a kind of our approach to this solution. We're trying, yes, and besides this point of view, we see quite a lot of interest from the institutional partners, where
Mhm.
they not only not willing to touch the black liquidity, but actually they need to be fully aware of the set of people that they're trading with.
Mhm.
So for these partners, we are building a solution that which is pretty similar to this one, but where all of the parties of the trades are known. Only KYBit and market makers are able to work there. They are able to use liquidity that is also coming from the KYBit, KYC partners, and stuff like that. So it's working like that because of the way how the regulations are written in many countries. And yeah, so the system is adjustable, and we're trying to cover as many of the use cases as possible and deliver the service level uh, to everybody um, uh, in accordance with their requirements, right? But obviously, I don't want to let people launder money through near intents, and this is and we are trying to do everything that we can in order to prevent this from happening.
Yes. So maybe this is dips a little bit more into the philosophical um, component of it, but um, there's always, you know, different levels of what could be considered acceptable versus what could be considered not acceptable, and that could change very quickly. And as I'm sure, um, one of the reasons, so for example, one of the reasons we've seen in with like recent global conflicts, especially in the eastern part of Europe, for example, there's a lot of trade that has been disrupted because of this. And there's a lot of people who have, I know that for every metric I've seen, there's been a big explosion in growth of cryptocurrencies in the entire CIS region, for example. And obvious, and there might be a very clear, for some of us, there might be a very clear line between okay, this is, someone who's underserved in their country by financial services versus this is some active criminal organization or something. And we do not want to deal with those, but we do want to deal with the others. But maybe the governments of those countries might not necessarily like us dealing with the others. So there's where's the line, and how is that kind of enforced? Either philosophically in general, or actually like on a technical level, as far as like,
Yeah.
because obviously full KYC is the ultimate top, as far as like
Yeah, but it's all the
no one
tool, right?
argues. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that there is the person with this passport.
Hmm.
Like there are all of the different, there are sanctions lists, there are OFAC lists, there are
Hmm.
different types of lists. There is like this person is linked with a politically exposed person. Like there are so many nuances there. What I know is that I'm not an expert here, and that's why we are basing our judgment on uh, on the established players in the KYT space that are marking the liquidity. Projects like TRM, Crystal Blockchain, and many others, as well as working with decentralized players inside of the industry, including centralized exchanges, stablecoin, big stablecoin issuers. They have their own standards towards what is okay and what is not okay. And uh, our goal is to make sure that after that this transaction is executed, then the user funds are not going to be blocked on the centralized exchange, or the market makers' funds are not going to be blocked on centralized exchange, or just suddenly Tether or Circle is not going to block their account and freeze their assets, right? So, in order this not to happen, which is going to turn into lots of stress for the user, um, uh, it like what we're trying to do is work with these parties and establish this medium of exchange of the information, so that they're saying that this is a no-go, and then we're just not providing quotes for this thing. Now, I'm Ukrainian, and I know very well the problems with
Hmm.
the governments and stuff like that. And sometimes there are the situations when there is a court order, and not only from Ukraine but also like from any country, and then there needs to be like somebody who is acting on this. And the way how we are resolving this is, for example, there is a guy that is out of the law in his country, and he has an account inside of the near intense protocol. So, what can happen with this? And there is the upgradability path for the protocol. It is in place because we need to adjust to how the other networks are operating and stuff like, and just introduce new features. And this is handled by the DAO. This is multi-sig of the trusted parties that are all together controlling, and the that's in the cases of these court orders coming in, and then these participants are actually going to respond to this, and according to their knowledge and their assessment of the situation, whether something should happen, for example, like freezing of the assets of the particular user. Um, uh, so that's kind of the most straightforward way, and the best possible decentralization approach that we are able to observe. Exactly, absolutely the same thing is happening with the blockchains itself, because there are validators, they have stake, they need to vote up until a certain amount of validators or certain amount of stake. It works absolutely the same. It's the majority of the participants or like guardians of the protocol or the chain who need to make a decision to perform some particular action that lies outside of the normal operations of the protocol. And that's exactly the approach that we are doing with our upgrades and with any activities around this stuff. I'm happy to report that um, at this moment in time, we have had multiple investigators and teams have been claiming that they're representing the victims, and they were asking to freeze the assets. But unfortunately, none of them have been providing sufficient means of proving that
Hmm.
that there is an actual court order asset seizure letter or something like this, um, to convince the multisig members to actually perform any actions in this direction. However, that's the approach that we are executing here, and this is exactly the way um, how like normal judiciary system is
Mhm.
working.
Yeah, of course. And I'm sure it's an intensely complex issue that I don't think will ever be considered to be solved entirely. I think it's a constant moving target of how are we dealing with this today? 10 years from now, things may be different, but I don't think anyone's going to come to, we guys, we figured it out. This is how we keep things decentralized, but keep bad things from happening. We've done it. It's probably
Yeah,
never going
I
to be
think
done.
it's just yeah, I think it's just that's just the spectrum, right? Uh,
Hmm.
uh, there are super hardcore. It's like with privacy. There are super hardcore privacy solutions that you cannot do anything with. They are clunky, complicated, and not very easy, and they are not allowing you to do much things. There is a great,
Hmm.
absolutely wonderful technology of Zcash, but it requires to create zk proofs on the client side. It requires to have kind of a little bit slower experience on the wallet side, additional things. But that's the payment. That's the what like you're choosing one like full privacy versus the user experience. And with, for example, with further upgrades like Tachyon upgrade that they are looking into, the user experience is probably going to degrade even more. But I will let Zcash people to discuss this. But then
Yeah.
there is this like practical privacy or there are other approaches there, and then there are public approaches, right? So the proper thing to have is to have this spectrum of options, and we are in this spectrum much closer to the cypherpunks rather than centralized exchanges, because we're building things in a decentralized manner. We're building it so that it can be permissionlessly accessed without KYC, with like the proper validation. However, it is not our intention to stimulate illegal activity, and that's why we're putting in the the industry standards approaches, um,
Hmm.
which are protecting existing users of the protocol and trying to keep their assets safe rather than helping the people who are laundering money to do what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does make a lot of sense. Now let's talk about uh, fees and price execution. So, first of all, how does that compare to currently to, I would say, like the rest of the space, which is a very broad, of course, question, but let's just say a typical centralized exchange experience or like a typical DEX price execution. How
Yeah.
competitive is it, and how long term can it be that competitive?
Yes, the prices on near intents are pretty competitive in general. We are seeing that we are lacking on the distribution in comparison to other cross-chain protocols. However, we are going to get on par with them very, very soon, with more with kind of the rise of the near intents and more kind of distributions paying attention to the protocol. Now, uh, near intents, because of the specifics of the architecture, um, does not require the development of the smart contracts on the target chains that are integrated. And because of this, um, so we are able to have just smart contracts on the Near blockchain. And because of this, we are able to connect networks that don't have smart contracts, or their runtime is pretty specific, and so that nobody wants to develop it. To my best knowledge, Near Intense is the only decentralized cross-chain swapping solution that has integration with Zcash, uh, but probably not with Zcash. Maybe there are some others, but like with Cardano, with Tron,
Hmm.
with Stellar, and with many others. Our goal is to interconnect all of the chains and be friends with everybody, because I strongly believe that interconnected ecosystem is much stronger than the ecosystems that are doing PvP for the liquidity. But instead, we need to unite, and we have some bigger enemies outside of crypto space that we need to fight.
Of course.
Um, and yeah, so the prices, yeah, so this is like we have these sub-unique markets that we're serving. And on these markets, obviously, there is no competition. But on the
Mhm.
on the other competitive markets, uh, our pricing model, like through this central limit order book style approach, it delivers much better prices in comparison with AMM style solution, like for example Thorchain does. Um, and I can say that for the markets that exist on Binance, approximately in 50% of the trades, we see that the market makers are providing prices better than on Binance. And the difference is not that big in general. So, like, maybe we're talking about less than 10 bips on the swap, and in the majority of the cases, it's less than like 2 bips, the difference. The reason for this is that the market makers are running absolutely the same neutralization strategies that they are running on Binance. And the difference here is that with near intents, they are able to neutralize their positions on Binance as well as on other centralized exchanges. And they literally can do arbitrage on the go here. And they are able
Mm.
to implement like sophisticated strategies. So uh, there are no limitation. So let me put it that way. There is no limitation to what market makers are able to do in order to neutralize their positions, and that's why there is no inherent limitations to how good the prices can be in comparison with other markets. And because of this, literally the prices that you're getting on Binance on a single market that exists sometimes can be worse than the prices that you are getting on near intents. If you are going to exclude the distribution fees, right? So please always remember that any distribution, any front end has inherently the fee that they are imposing. And for some front ends, we have seen fees as high as more than 140 bips. And these distribution channels are gonna take in quite a large fee for their users and for the swaps. But excluding this part, the prices itself are extremely competitive. There is nothing that we need to do in order to uh, improve it, except for working with more and more, gonna trying to attract more and more sophisticated market makers who know how to do the proper strategies and stuff like that. And I think we are just delivering on this, and it just makes sense for market makers to come in and compete for this flow of usually more than 100 millions a day, from which they can earn some money. So the structure makes sense. There is no additional trust. Anyone can join. There is a decentralized settlement. And then the market makers are able to use whatever strategies that they want in order to neutralize their positions. And that's the core that is driving the best possible prices, or at least the prices without any limits. And we just continue executing on this.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, long term, how do you think this fits into the whole crypto trading ecosystem? Do you think that this is the kind of thing that intent-based trading protocols are going to end up replacing centralized exchanges entirely, or do you think they're going to replace part of what centralized exchanges do, or maybe there will at the end of the day be some sort of a a marriage between the two where there's certain parts of the centralized exchanges will still exist, but they will offload a lot of their work to decentralized protocols. So we'll kind of have a hybrid system. What do you kind of see happening long term?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question also. So I think that if we're talking about cross chain, then centralized exchanges are a great example of great cross-chain applications. They
Mhm.
deliver to you great user experience. You're able to trade really, really quick. There is support. These are just in the majority of it of the centralized exchanges. They are good products. And me being a product person, I really like that we have this great solution. More on the techie and crypto native side, I do believe that we need to have solid alternatives that are decentralized, and we need to have a hedge against centralized exchanges, if you will. Like Bitcoin is a hedge
Mhm.
against US dollar. Well, then we need to have a hedge against FTX. And
Of course.
again, it's nothing wrong with centralized exchanges, and they are doing good job to onboard people. The thing that matters is just to have the spectrum of options to choose from, and then everybody are going to choose the solution that they want to work on. Now, I think the reason why we were not getting into this situation when the cross chain is solved, and it is solved only by the centralized exchanges, is because it is pretty complex, right? The majority of blockchain developers are stuck in the paradigm of synchronous execution, and like in cross chain, it's clearly async. Like you need to figure out how to deal with it. Maybe because of this, maybe that's actually the reason why it's Near ecosystem who is innovating here, just because Near's runtime is asynchronous, because Near is a sharded blockchain. So like you cannot
Mhm.
do synchronous transactions in the sharded blockchains. Um, so yeah, the good alternative. But what I really believe is that both sexes and DEXs are not very good with the user experience in comparison with what traditional finance is able to provide to us. We really need to elevate as industry on the user experience in order to get some meaningful exposure in the normal world. And it's just because like Revolut is so much better than Binance or
Mhm.
OKX or whatever. It doesn't matter. Um, and I think that additional competition from the decentralized cross-chain solutions to the centralized exchanges would actually stimulate this competition that is going to elevate the whole industry closer to the standards of the Web2 TradFi solutions. We we desperately need to get there. This is very, very, very important because if we want to win minds and wallets of people around the world, rather than sitting in the whatever 3 trillion industry that is lower in capitalization than Nvidia. Uh, like like we really need to do stuff, and so I really encourage everybody to think about the user experience. So overall, I don't think that centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges, these are like the enemies. They are just serving different markets, and that's good. I hope that we are going to see in the future some centralized exchanges picking up the path towards the decentralization and installing more transparency and kind of the non-custodial setups within their solutions. So nothing prevents Binance from putting their matching engine on chain. They even have their own chain for this, right?
Of
Um,
course.
and there are not a lot of transactions that are happening per second there. It's actually like uh, three kind of matches that are happening per second, approximately like that.
Mhm.
And nothing stops from putting it on chain. it is not done. There are probably quite a lot of thinking around why it is not done, or maybe people are not thinking about why to do this because of the security, additional more kind of tighter controls, and then they still have the KYC of all of the participants. So there is no necessity of doing this. However, moving towards the and giving an opportunity for people to be in custody of their funds rather than having a custodians who are managing your funds. I think it is important alternative to have, um, and definitely it has its own market, um, and uh, uh, and there are pros and cons for all of the approaches, and yeah, so um, I think crypto should not fight each other, should not be going into the PvP mode, but rather let's go and change and provide a viable alternative to the traditional finance to everybody and make it usable to everybody.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. This has been quite the illuminating chat. Where would you encourage people to go follow you?
So the best possible place where you're able to listen to my thoughts is in Twitter. I'm there at Alex Aurora Dev. As well, you can go get a follow to Near Intense. The official Twitter account is near_intense. And then just the Near protocol at Near protocol. There are quite a lot of information that are there. You're not going to miss anything. But obviously, the highest quality content is at Alex Aurora Dev.
Obviously. Sounds good. Well, thanks very much for chatting today. I hope you have a good one.
Yeah, thank you very much.